She didn't knock, she didn't warn. She stood across the driveway with her phone held high and shouted, "Yes, 911, there's an illegal gathering happening right now." Music was playing, the garage door was half open, and laughter spilled into the cold night air. It was my birthday, just a small garage party, nothing wild. But Karen stood there like she'd caught a crime in progress, pointing at my house and telling the operator we were out of control. What she couldn't see from where she stood was who was inside that garage. Men and women in plain clothes, jackets tossed over chairs, badges clipped but hidden, quiet eyes that noticed everything. When the sirens finally echoed down the street, Karen folded her arms and smiled like justice was about to knock. I took a sip of my drink and stayed calm, because every single person she just reported was trained to respond to that sound. The patrol cars rolled in fast, lights washing the street red and blue. Karen rushed toward them, talking over herself, saying she feared for the neighborhood, saying we were drunk and dangerous. The officers listened politely, then walked past her and into the garage. The music dropped. Conversations stopped. One by one, wallets came out. Not arguments, not panic. Badges, IDs, soft nods. Someone laughed under their breath. The officer's tone changed instantly. "Evening," one said, calm and careful. Karen leaned in, confused, asking why they weren't shutting it down. That's when one of my friends stepped forward and said, "Ma'am, you just called 911 on a room full of off-duty cops." Silence hit harder than the music ever did. Karen's face went white. The officers turned back to her, now asking different questions. Why she lied about a disturbance, why she exaggerated threats, why she was filming people on private property. Her voice cracked as she tried to explain. The street got quiet, and for the first time that night, Karen realized the problem wasn't the party, it was the call she never should have made. Karen tried to pull it back. She said she was just being careful, that the HOA had rules about gatherings, that she felt unsafe. One of the officers asked her how many times she'd called 911 on neighbors before. She hesitated. Another officer was already checking the call log. The answer was more than she wanted to admit. Inside the garage, the mood stayed calm. Drinks were set down. Jokes stopped. Everyone watched quietly as the story flipped. The lead officer stepped aside and spoke low with a few of my friends. No shouting, no drama, just facts. Then he turned back to Karen and said, "False emergency reports are serious." Her hands started shaking. She tried to laugh it off, but no one laughed with her. A neighbor opened a window across the street and asked what was going on. An officer answered, "Everything's fine here." Then he looked at Karen and added, "Not for everyone." Karen's confidence cracked right there. She stepped back, bumping into her own car, eyes darting like she was looking for someone to save her. One officer asked her to stay put while they finished their report. Another walked the street, talking to neighbors who had come outside. The same story came back every time. Music was normal, no fights, no threats. Just a birthday, just a garage. Karen kept insisting the HOA gave her the right to act. The officer shook his head and said, "HOA rules don't override emergency lines." Then came the moment she didn't expect. The officer told her she'd need to come down to the station to explain the call. Not in cuffs, not yet, but serious enough that her voice dropped to a whisper. She looked at me like I should stop it. I didn't say a word. Inside the garage, someone quietly turned the music back on, low and respectful. The party didn't end. Karen's night did. As the patrol car pulled away with her in the back seat, one of my friends raised his drink and said something that stuck with me. Next time she should knock before calling backup. The next day, the neighborhood felt different, quieter, lighter. Karen's name lit up the group chat for a few hours, then went silent. Someone mentioned she'd been warned before about abusing emergency calls. Someone else said, this time it stuck. No fines showed up, no notices, no late-night filming. The garage door stayed open, like nothing had ever happened. A week later, we had another get-together. Smaller, calmer, no sirens, just neighbors stopping by, laughing, staying a little longer than usual. One of the patrol officers from that night even waved as he drove past. The party ended early, not out of fear, but because we didn't need the noise anymore. The point had already been made. Karen never called again, and every time I hear music drift out of that garage now, I remember how fast fake power disappears when it runs into people who actually know the law. She thought she was shutting us down. All she really did was expose herself to the one group of people you never want showing up when you're lying. Months later, the story turned into one of those neighborhood legends people tell with a smile. New families moved in and heard it secondhand, how someone once called 911 on a birthday party and ended up explaining herself to half the police department. Karen's house went up for sale quietly. No goodbye post, no final warning letter, just an empty driveway where she used to stand with her phone raised like a weapon. As for us, the garage stayed the same. Same lights, same laughter, same friends dropping by after long shifts. Sometimes the music gets loud, sometimes it doesn't, but nobody panics anymore. Nobody reaches for their phone to feel important, because everyone learned something that night. Authority isn't loud, and it doesn't need to threaten. She tried to shut down a party with one phone call. Instead, she reminded the whole block of a simple truth. When you lie to 911, you better be sure who's listening on the other end, and who's already standing right in front of you.